families. Don't miss out on this unmissable TV experience. It is the Nigerian Navy in focus. Every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on Television Continental TVC.
Organized Labour has given the federal government May the 31st as a deadline to come up with a new minimum wage for Nigerian workers. This is Standpoint. I am Precious Amayo. Now, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Joe Ajaero, and his counterpart in a trade union congress, Festus Osifo, are unanimous that a 30,000 naira current minimum wage has been grossly insufficient for Nigerian workers in the light of current economic realities. They insist a new living wage of 615,000 naira be expeditiously approved by the Bola Tinubu administration, and that's before the end of May. Meanwhile, the federal government has said, although the tripartite committee on national minimum wage is yet to conclude its negotiations, workers will not lose anything, as the new minimum wage will take effect from April 1st, 2024. The Minister of State for Labour, Nkiruka Oyejocha, said it was regrettable that the new national minimum wage was not ready before the May Day celebrations, but that wide consultations are ongoing to ensure that a new minimum wage is agreed upon as soon as possible. Now I have joining me former Deputy President, Nigeria Labour Congress, Labour and Industrial Relations Consultant, Comrade Amechi Asuguni. He joins us, in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, alongside a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management and lawyer, Jide Ologun, he joins me to discuss issues surrounding the implementation of a new minimum wage. Thank you so much for joining us. I didn't know you were a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel. I just know you as a lawyer. So, you fit right in both. You're wearing two hats in this conversation. We will talk about personnel, which is the workers, and then, the legal perspective on things. Thank you both for joining us. So I want to start with the clarification made by the NLC, just Organized Labour, some days ago. Initially, there were statements as to whether they were rejecting the 25%, 35% increase by the federal government, which was, the consolidated salary structure, not necessarily the new minimum wage. But they came out to say, no, they're not rejecting it. It was misrepresented, or their statement was misrepresented in the media. What's your thought on that as well? That increase by the federal government?
I think the worry by Labour with regards to the step taken by federal government was basically the approach, because negotiation we know is ongoing, and going out of the box of negotiation to make pronouncement of wage to certain categories of workers, not the general workers, because whether we like it or not, civil servants don't represent the private sector workers. So when you do that, it serves as injury to a certain degree, especially to representative of workers who see it as, what are you doing? We are supposed to inform our members, inform them of the outcome of the negotiation when duly agreed. Going ahead to tell them part of their achievement, what are we doing? Are we using that as a test to the negotiation, or you are doing that to discourage the process or to make members feel satisfied? Whereas we are not there. Look at what happened in Edo, for example. Award of Edo's governor's salary was over 100%, and then federal government is now doing 25, 35% respectively to certain categories of workers. To Labour, it was like you are putting the cart ahead of us. Therefore, allow negotiation to finish fast.
But that's something that's been ongoing, because that's the increase that government made as a result of the removal of fee subsidy and then the arising consequences. And government had, announced that increase for some, they had done that for some sectors. And they were now saying, look, okay, for the other sectors, we have not done it for. Here is your increase. It wasn't necessarily as though they were saying this was the minimum wage.
The eve, time matters in everything we do. The eve of May Day, such pronouncement was made as if it's a basket offer to workers, as though, workers were eagerly waiting to see the outcome of the minimum wage. But like we said, the award of government should be taken from the positive wing. And that is what some of us have represented to tell Labour, that what government have done should be seen as positive, because it's going to be in addition, in any way you look at it. Now they've given 25, 35. That is in addition to the negotiation itself. And that even tells you that they're also tired of the minimum wage, 30,000. So people should take that as a basis for yearning for more increment. 25, 35 cannot take home anybody, but they've done it to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal, which even the delay for doing so is also injurious. But they say it's better late than never. So we have it now. Let the negotiation be concluded for better outcome. I think that is more desirous than even the offer made.
Let me also get your thoughts on it, that increase. You know, he's talking about timing. Almost as though the timing was calculated to seem like a basket offer to workers, and perhaps timing was wrong, and then, but it is a positive move, even though it was done at the wrong time. What's your assessment of that move?
I quite agree with his position. And let me say this, even the statutory minimum wage that we operate right now, in the eyes of the law, we are running it illegally because it has expired. It's expected to have been reviewed. I think it expired on the 18th of April. And if you know the government very well, and that is my concern, even when this promise is positive, will it be implemented? If it should be implemented, will it be sustainable? Because we are talking about the ability to carry out what you have promised. And I know right now, given the economic and indebtedness weight upon Nigeria, that it may be a matter that even if implemented, may not go beyond some months. And we have to start crying in other areas. So I'm looking at it substantially from how can we pay attention to this economy? Because what is on board now is that this minimum wage no longer complies with what we have in Section 16, subsection 2D of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that says that the government shall pay reasonable living minimum wage. And the NLC came up and TVC to say, okay, give us 615,000 naira as minimum wage per month. That is the negotiation going on now. Considering accommodation, I think transmission is about 110 naira, and medical facilities. And on the scale of considering a worker with a family of 6, and you know right now that even the inflationary rate in the country, we erode that 615,000 naira. And if the government should pay 615,000 naira as minimum wage, then how do they graduate it across board? So I think we have a big issue in our hands, and it may continue with the trades, the negotiation, and everything. So I just want to advise that right now maybe our focus should shift from that minimum wage itself and see how we can reinvent our economy. You see, in 1974, the minimum wage of Nigeria, civil service, in the civil service was 60 naira. And it was a huge amount then. If you convert it at the present rate now, it's about 90,000 naira, as far back, given the economic strength it commanded. In 1980, I think it was about 250 naira.
That would be that, look, we have gone backwards, because now, as it stands now, away from the consolidated structure and other increase that has been added, let's say the 30,000 naira. If as at the time you mentioned it was 60 naira to be 90,000 naira now.
Definitely.
That means it was 60,000 naira short.
Far behind. In fact, in 1991, it was 250. And in 2011, it rose to 18,000 naira until we came to this 30,000 naira. So what is the exchange rate now? Because US dollar is a giant in the monetary arena. And so throw 30,000 naira into the foreign exchange. What is it? And I looked at the minimum wage in the USA. It's about $7.25 per hour. I have about 40 hours in a week. And if you calculate it in a month, it's about 1.6 million naira if you convert it to naira. You see, so when you put all this together, have we also considered at the macro level the effect this will have on the economy? Let's even assume the government comes out and says, okay, from June 2024, we pay $500,000 as minimum wage. So what happens to the market woman, the other businesses? It's a circle. So how, and if you look at the Convention 131 of the International Labour Organization, it states clearly the essence of putting minimum wage in place to represent the interests of the worker and the families and everything. So you find this economic quagmire just going round and round. And having studied the labor union and the government, I think they are friends who come out to pretend as enemies, given the circles they have gone through. Let's look at this nation. How can the economy benefit all? How can we have sustainable policies? Because except you prompted, we are not here to discuss the gap within the nation. Now we are quarreling over 615 naira minimum wage. Some people earn so much that they can set up a local government if they desire to set it up. So we need to balance all this, because eventually, when you come to human resource management, you talk about equity, you talk about productivity, there are other considerations. And when you talk about wage, it's a compensation, because in HR, you employ someone, you provide the job, the person does the job, you pay the person. So in Nigeria now, we're, as at this morning, so officially, the pump price of PMS, it's about 630 naira. And that is even where it is available. Some buy for 800, some buy for 1,000. Yes. So transportation and everything. So we need to look beyond this minimum wage right now.
You know, as you were speaking, I just realized that those who think that they earn so much in Nigeria, especially if you earn 1 million and above, you realize that, look, your salary is America's minimum wage. So that should humble you a bit. But, you know, let me come to Comrade Asugun. He sort of said something that both Labour and federal government are friends, and, you know, they are sort of pretending. And that's what a lot of workers feel like. Because this did not start with 615,000 naira. I think it started with over 1 million naira, and then, you know, Labour started to bring it down, and now we're at 615,000. And let's not even forget that the TUC had, I think, about 470,000 naira in mind before they harmonized with NLC. And for, you know, Nigerian workers who are looking at them and say, well, you're done, you know, we will get what we want from the federal government. So how serious and what sort of pressure should be coming from the NLC? How serious are they taking this?
I think the seriousness is still waiting for the outcome, because some of us, if you begin to negotiate or discuss the mechanism in which their proposal was actually arrived at, you from the outside may wonder how you submitted 1 million and today you are 615. But our target is that they are playing with their circle. Somebody has said, I needed a minimum of 1 million. We are still within the boss of the 1 million. Negotiation is ongoing. So it will be... And
let's not forget that the 615,000 is not sacrosanct, because I heard the comrade Ajero actually said that. It is not sacrosanct. And so if it is not sacrosanct, it means that it can actually go down.
For sure. So, negotiation is safe. When the principle of give and take applies in negotiation, it tells you that the more you give your reason to actually get what you have proposed, the employer also gives his reason why you should also reduce for purposes of ability to pay. We are the one advancing that this issue of wage, we should be looking at the economic advantage of wage, so that we don't just look at wage from the point of discretion. It is not true. Like he said, it's a compensation. When we regard wage as compensation, it's no longer at the will of employer, because I have done my bit for providing that my service. The problem we have in Nigeria is we don't measure wage with productivity, and that is the problem. Wage is supposed to promote national output, but it's not happening in Nigeria, because even when you pay wage, when we regard the entire economy, the indicators of the economy, they are waiting for wage increment, because wage increment is an act that promotes consumption of families. When household increases their consumption, invariably you are telling the economy that will have more money in the hand of the people. The more they patronize those products, the more production of those products. Demand compares production. And that tells you that more companies will be in competition, especially when they are locally made. Because if you also increase consumption of foreign goods, then you erode the increment we are talking about. So seriousness is on them, because they are representing the workforce that are wearing the shoes. including some of us here, the determination of the wage actually affect our whatever we earn, whether business in any form at all. You can only get patronage when money is in the hand of people. And when people lack purchasing power, it drops the value of the economy itself. So I want government to actually shift from this mindset of we cannot pay, from taking advantage of what you are paying to get more. Because whatever you give, and it does not give back to the economy, that is the problem of governors who tells you we cannot pay. We cannot pay. Why? Because they are not seeing the advantage of wage in their state. So they rather stand against wage, whereas these are governors that employ services of consultants when they have workers that will do the job. So you go to their wage bill, you see pronouncement of figures that would have been used to measure infrastructure that will benefit the people. So they spend, rather than giving wage a priority, they give priority to consultancy charges when they have those workers that would have done the job at the expense of their salary. So those are the misnomer that we see in governance that has affected our perception to this issue of wage. By the time we give it the right diagram it holds, that is when we appreciate that government award of wage, which is lawful, should be done even annually as a way of motivating workers to promote production. Because that is the only way country drives. You cannot increase your GDP if you are not producing locally. And a country like Nigeria, whereby we depend so much on foreign currency because we want to change the money to get the foreign goods, and when you do so, inflation will rise. At the end of the day, the money becomes nonsense. Even though you give workers 500,000 without a corresponding increase in productivity locally to making our own economy stable. Because when economy can seem to be positive but temporary, economy can be positive but sustainable, and that is when the environment is telling you that even the raw materials can be obtained locally. All the natural resources we have in Nigeria is enough to promote wage, promote industrialization in such a way that unemployment, do you know that absence of wage?
Shouldn't that be one of the things that Labour is also advocating for, what you just mentioned, the issue of local production? And because there are also workers in this, in these sectors where local production has been stifled, whether it's the textile industry, or even we used to have a lot of breweries in Nigeria. Some of them are not even working anymore. And so, isn't that one of the things that Labour should also be advocating for beyond just wage? No,
Labour already we are advocating, including holding seminars. We have had summit in the past where we invited government to speak on national growth. And you cannot grow your economy if you don't have these factories running. When government tells you they don't have business in business, it tells you their mindset. It tells you that they are not even ready to engage. Okay, look at the example of Dangote now. Now a refinery is built. Is that a refinery for Nigeria or for Dangote as a person? Now products are taken out because they are looking for profit. If that was locally made for Nigeria to own their refinery, that deliberate drop of price will emerge. So local made goods does not even stop at what we consume, but that which we consume naturally. Because if you watch fuel, as rightly pointed before now, it's not just a product for driving vehicle. It's a product that determines transportation. It determines production. It determines our income. So the higher the fuel, the higher the cost of production, the higher the price of goods, and then we spend more as consumers. So it's a problem that government should be the one, our advocate is government should buy in this very culture, this local made culture. It's not, Mr. President, to be telling Nigerians to actually patronize local made goods. What are we making locally that we should patronize? That should be the answer. So they should rather bring investors to actually produce those things that they know Nigeria consume most. We call it competitive advantage in economics. Those things you have advantage over other nations. Make them abundant in your nation so that it becomes cheaper for other countries to come here, demand our own money in order to buy our goods. That will make our currency stable. So issue of wage, I agree, we should even pay little attention. But why you must pay also key attention to wages because it's also a determinant for economic growth.
So it's an irreversible
Yes, so
cycle.
it's a constant.
So I want Mr. Jide Ologun to speak to this, but I want us to take a break now, and then when we return, he will react to some of the things that you have already said. Stay with us.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector, and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
Thanks for staying with us. This is Standpoint. We've been speaking on the agitation for a new national minimum wage in the country. In fact, not even a national minimum wage anymore. Labour said it has to be a living wage. The federal government said it agrees, but the figure is what negotiations are still on for. We've been speaking with former Deputy President, Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Amechi Asuguni. He's also an industrial relations consultant. And also we have a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management and a lawyer, Jide Ologun. Thank you both for staying with us. So he made a lot of points just before that break that I wanted to react to, but I also wanted to ask you, because now Labour is saying that, look, we're giving the federal government till 31st of May to either respond or we down tools. But before that, you were speaking about the legal implications of the fact that, look, we're still running 30,000 naira. Has any law been breached? Because it's now, and because the government had already said they're going to start from 1st of May, no matter what happens. 1st of April, thank you. No matter what happens, has any law been breached?
We have the laws there, but do we pursue the law? And these are big questions. And don't forget also that some of the laws we have governing employment relations in Nigeria, some of them are highly obsolete. And I say that respectfully. You recall when ASU engaged the government, and at the end of the day, the government went to the National Industrial Court, and the decision was that no pay, and no work, no pay. You see, so those things are still there. And I think that is where NLC also, the labor force should go beyond engaging government. If you look at Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the National Assembly shall make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good governance of Nigeria. We need to touch on some of these laws. Like I said it now, right now the 30,000 naira in the eyes of the law is just a matter of convenience. But what are we doing about it? What are the penalties? What happens if this happens and that? So that the government won't just come out to make promises. And how do we balance things? If you look at Africa, for instance, we talk about Mauritius, and my vice president, Kashim Chachima, mentioned Mauritius when he was in, I think, in Switzerland to market Nigeria as a potential for business globally. And you look at Botswana, look at what they do. You see, your workforce is important. You look at Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says clearly that the state shall abolish corrupt practice and abuse of office. So when we have this kind of minimum wage, this kind of economy, how can you deal with corrupt practices? You know, I read a report today that about 58 ex-governors looted about 2.187 trillion naira. And so you now see somebody, some states are not even paying the 30,000 minimum wage. So how do they cope? So you go in there and file documents with the government to perfect the title in a subsequent transaction, and your file disappears because you must settle. So these are issues. So you find people stealing in office to cope. We go around to do our evaluation. Around my office, there are some shops that the entrepreneurs only come maybe like twice in a week because when some of them come, patronage has dropped, some of them have shut down, They trek for kilometers to get home. Somebody was telling me, coming from, I think, Songo to Lagos, to Ikeja, he spent 2,500 naira.
Every day?
Just to come. No.
Just to come. So it's 5,000 naira
back.
From.
So this man is entitled to lunch. He must take care of his family. The electricity tariff, we still debate whether it's been removed or not, or increased or not. The fuel price is up. Rent will go up. So you find all these issues. And within the same country, there are those who are living in unbridled affluence. And that is why I passed my comment. So if we are going to engage this government, let us engage. You know, you look at Singapore, there is a balance between the government efforts and the workers and everything towards national development. You see, in some countries of the world where we have economic sanity, they have been able to balance it. But here we are in the country, and sometimes we also are not mindful that not everyone is within the bracket of the minimum wage we are discussing. Not everyone is in the organized private or public sector. Some people, they depend on wherever it turns. And I say
and that's
this
the informal
boldly.
sector.
I do not see the government paying reasonable living minimum wage. As we speak now, the total indebtedness of Nigeria is knocking at the door of 100 trillion naira. It was about 12.12 trillion naira in March 2015. So where are we going? So
before we get to how, Mr. Logo, before we get to how realistic that figure is, I wanted to sort of ask you, I hope I can still remember that line of thought, because we're speaking about it. Yes, the idea of the civil service, you know, because we look at the fact that you were talking about the value for the Nigerian worker. People will say, well, how valuable is the civil service now? We've talked about if you do not put your file or put money inside the file, nobody attends to you. Is that a case of the chicken and the egg? Which comes first? Is it that we have not placed premium on the civil service workers, and so they find means to, you know, enable themselves, or because of the rot within the system, there is no value for the civil service?
It's because of the rot within the system, and it's a global factor. It's not just limited to the civil service. In fact, when you engage artisans now, you know where we are in the country. They collect money. Some of them collect money from you and disappear. And boldly, you chase them around. What will you do? But the point now is, you remember the Oronsoye report that pointed out the bloated population within the workforce. Because when you talk about productivity sometimes, it's not about the duplicity of offices we have. One of the federal minister who returned as federal minister, while waiting, said having ministers of state may not be necessary. So he made a very valid point. You have a workforce and you still engage consultants with huge amounts. So are governors accountable to the people? What do you do with the money? Nigerians have conceded the removal of fuel subsidy. You know the difference. Now, reportedly, we earn more because that aspect has been blocked. The money we earn is now shared. We have more allocation to state. So why can't state come up and look at developing the people within and developing infrastructure, electricity to power businesses, make your environment secured, and things like that. You know, so that we have a vibrant economy. And that is why I'm concerned about sustainability. So there's this quotation from Sheikh Zayed. Sheikh Zayed is the founding father of the modern UAE. The man said concerning oil money that money is not wealth, but developing people. So the focus of the developmental policies in the UAE started with, let us develop our people. When you have a developed people, they help you to develop your environment. Lee Kuan Yew also engaged in that in Singapore. Singapore left Malaysia in 1965 with little resources, but with powerful leadership vision. And today, it's one of the best countries to live and to work in the world. As we speak right now, if you profile the potentials of Nigeria, Nigeria has about 33% of the gas deposit in Africa. We have the largest deposit of proven gas. And that is why I'm glad he mentioned the case of Dangote refineries. The first refinery in Nigeria was commissioned in 1965. We discovered oil in commercial quantity in 1956, started producing in 1958. So what has God not given us? As at today, even the Port Harcourt refineries that we've been waiting will come on stream again. We are still waiting, and yet the oil thieves are there. So there are more for us to engage than this minimum wage of a thing. If not, we just keep going round and round and round, and the potentials are there. And let me say this, many may not know it. They say where there is a will, there is a way. Because of the war going on between Russia and Ukraine, there is a high demand and need for gas in Europe and some other countries. And Nigeria is constructing a gas pipe link to, I think, Algeria. And that project is getting serious attention. So why can't you give serious attention to what will enhance the fortunes of your citizens? These are the big questions. These are the big questions. So you find a nation sitting on wealth, and probably, you know, I'm short of adjective and verbs to describe what exactly is going on.
So
here.
while you're trying to remember some of the adjectives, let me come to Comrade Asuguni. Labour has said that, look, they are going to down tools by May the 31st if nothing is done. But one wonders how realistic that timeline is. Negotiations are ongoing. 615,000 has been put on the table. Government is saying we're going to look at it. Let's not also forget the organized private sector. Let's not also forget the issues around the consequential salary adjustment. Then there is the part of the National Assembly. So how realistic is that May 31st?
You know, whenever notice is given, especially when it concerns industrial action during negotiation like this, some of us always advise that government should not pay attention to what can labor do in terms of mobilization to shut down or protest, however you classify the possibilities of labor action. Government should rather pay attention to what itself can do to not just prevent the action, but also show cause to its obligation to the people. Because NSC may be the one giving notice. Nigerians may be the one to protect. And that should be the ringing tone that Nigerian government should be hearing. So, you know, cost of living versus standard of living is a different thing. So when we talk about wage, we are looking at the standard of living. Now, the cost of living determinants is the absence of government attention in the public activities. So those facilities that should offer us easy spending are making. Do you know that the average worker in Nigeria has his own borehole? Whose country does that? You are developing. What is the evidence that we have moved from where we were in 2015, 9 years after? Where are we now? The minimum wage as at 2011, the purchasing power of 18,000 then, what is the purchasing power of what we have today? And what has government done between that time till now to actually show cause of their involvement in the economy growth? Because if we continue to say minimum wage lasts for 5 years, and another one will come maybe in 2030 or 2029, that is not the attention of anyone that want to promote the economy of Nigeria. Ours is, how do you reduce the cost of living in Nigeria? And the stability we're talking about, the issue of wage, will become almost a minute issue in the discussion around. Because why do we need the money? If we can actually afford to pay the transport, where do you see Molwe, the arrangement we have, the internal arrangement of transportation in Nigeria shows you that we are not organized. An organized economy don't practice what we practice in this country, where you have Okada, you have Keke, you have bus, you have the long one. There is no measure, no policy govern our transportation. And therefore, when government try to, for example, in Lagos, they have BRT. you can now see how many Nigerians, what percentage of Lagosians actually apply the route of BRT. If government can provide water, for example, for the people, provide electricity, look at the recent increment. There's no area you point to as a sector that you don't have challenge to talk about. Look at what has happened, that the increment, government has promised that they want to promote efficiency in power supply. And to do that is for us to triple the cost of funding the electricity by us. So who is using whose head?
Well, there are those, I'm listening to economists who have said, because again, that's one of the issues that Labour raised, that government should reverse the increase in tariff. But some people have said without that increase, because there are also workers in that sector, and without that increase in tariff, also being able to pay those workers will not happen. That sector needs to be invested in. An increase in tariff is one of the ways that it can invest and make returns as well.
So who made the initial error? Because this is a country that both the meter you are giving to me, I am the one paying for it. And then you are charging me, because whatever you are charging me should also correspond with my wage. So if government is in agreement to that tariff increment as a way to solving their own sectorial issue, especially when it concerns the workers' wage or other development there, it means that the demand of labor for 615 should not go less. Because for people who live around Ikeja, I don't know for any other person, but I know what I pay. For you to spend above 200,000 for tariff monthly, then it suggests that all is not well for the country. If that alone takes the percentage of 600,000, you now spend more than 30% on electricity. Then where is your wage? Then you come to transportation. The example cited here that people can be in mainland and work at the island. And then you spend 2,000 naira transport per day, and then that takes how much from your salary in a month? That is your personal wage, not your family. That is your personal transport, not for your family. Because we're referring to a family of 6. Your wife may not be working, and then you need to fund your wife from that same expenses. Your children may be going to school, you need to fund them from that same salary. So the absence of government from other public facilities that should make it easy for workers to live is the reason you see wage demand on the high side. And it will not drop until government change the narrative. Because the system we have today is Nigerians trying to be a big man, like a Nigerian wanting to be a big man, not a big economy. That is an error. The economy should be richer than the people. But Nigerians, we are richer than the economy. So what is the money doing in our hand? What is the money doing in the account of anybody? Do you know that the money we have in the hands of Nigeria can solve Nigeria's problem if well applied? But they are still there promoting, enhancing bank owners. They are billionaires everywhere, opening branches of their bank outside Nigeria. What has that got to do with improving our economy? So we have not actually got the right policies that will even make wage a very minor concern to government. Now they are having this reaction from governors, no, don't give them. They call it don't give them. I was member of the last minimum wage. I participated to the end, including the technical committee for the palliative. When governors were represented, all they were clamoring was how to cut down even the 30,000. In fact, as a matter of fact, Mr. President then overruled them for that 30,000. It was never in the mind of governors to pay 30. I say it authoritatively because I was in the room. So why were they afraid? Because they cannot also shift from the oil-made money to internal revenue of their state. They are not generating revenue in their state. So what they are concerned is we are expecting a certain amount of money at the end of the month. How can they? Do you know that governance is about production? Governance is about generating fund. If governance is about distributing money or disbursement, then anybody can lead. But ability to be elected to represent the people also include capacity to manage. Prudency is one of them. And you cannot be prudent in spending when you don't even have the economic character of how to apply those certain things for workers. When workers see you driving, developing method that will make their life easy, do you know that demand of labor will drop? Because they will be seeing government plan for housing, government plan for transportation, government plan for other social amenities. And when these plans are actually coming alive on a yearly basis, do you know that when Nigeria tells you now that vision, I was a member of the committee that drafted Vision 2025 to 2050. But do you know that that vision is not part of the current government agenda? So how does a nation? Do you know that we may actually get to the point that we need a national law to tie the developmental agenda of Nigeria in such a way that it doesn't matter the political party that gets into power. You have to take Nigeria to our next border. But that is not happening. This is a country that changes policy at the beginning of every administration, as if we are toy. So who will now, that is why you see, Labour will tell you, since we cannot change the economy, give our share. And that share is our wage. Let us earn and take care of ourselves. Let us earn and provide water for ourselves. Let us earn and buy generator. Let us earn and make life easy for our family. Since you can't do it for everybody. And it's even poor, because Nigerian workers' representatives are not representing the entire informal sector. These are self-employed.
That's another conversation, we're going to have, because there is a private sector. Again, states and federal government are just one part of it. Whether the private sector can actually pay that amount, because you also have to think of that when you have this conversation. Where does this leave the private sector? That's 615,000 naira, which we know, of course, might not be sacrosanct.
The committee we have now to review the minimum wage is tripartite in nature. We have the labor, we have the federal government, we have the private sector. And I can let you know that some private sectors are doing even far beyond what the government has recommended, and we have facts and figures to that effect. But basically, my concern is what we are all expressing here. Can our economy accommodate what is going on? You have drawn us to private sector. How many investors left this country in the last 9 months? How many of them that are operational now have declared serious indebtedness? These are questions. So the economy is getting crippled, and by factors that are visible. In public relations...
When you say getting crippled, by what indices? Because we know that we have grown in terms of GDP. So what are the indices when you say it is getting crippled? Just so we have a better understanding.
My in-law, he's late now. If you invited him to a function and come to him that, what do you want to eat, sir? He will ask you, what do you have? You see, I'm not here to discuss theory, GDP or PPP or whatever. We are talking about realities, and we read these things every day. How much is the pump price of diesel? In fact, a big bank in Nigeria reduced the working time, and they started closing at 3 p.m. Many offices, when this power is taken, if it's available, they just open their windows. People, and the ILO has warned in HR, the next big challenge in health and safety in the workplace is climate change. You've noticed the heat. You see, so these are issues. I'm not talking about GDP. Some analysts will bring statistics in Nigerian economy, but how does it impact the people?
Is it trickling down?
Exactly. People are suffering, aggressive, begging to eat. Years ago, a politician said that Nigerians are not poor because people have not been eating from dustbin. I have videos and pictures that I can make available. I see human beings, both gender, going to pick things from dustbin, and I'm usually drawn to tears. A country that is rich in gas. In fact, the president said it, I think in the last 1 week, that we are not even an oil field, we are a gas field. You see, so, and you need this gas to provide electricity. And let me warn the government. There was a time Nitel was like an idol in this country. And thank God a transformation came to the telecom sector. And today, you can communicate on your pants. People are migrating to installing solar energy and different kinds of things. The government may come to a time that patronage will drop for their so-called epileptic services. We should note all this. And it will negatively impact the economy further. And these are the points. So private sector is groaning. I can let you know that. The cost of doing business in Nigeria is outrageous. And I mentioned the case of profiling in public relations. That's what we call the economic environment. So when you don't need to go begging foreign direct investors to come into your country. I've not heard of the UAE going around the world begging investors to come. And naturally, a prosperity magnet has been established in the UAE, and it attracts wealth from across the world, you see. So you develop that local capacity. We've been reading about banditry. Why won't banditry reduce to a minimal level? Because there are some mineral resources thieves, cabals, that smuggle our gold out of the country, and they have those working for them to cover up. We are talking of oil theft. I read a report recently where the GMD of NNPC Limited was telling us the number of illegal pipelines connected to the pipeline of NNPC. And I asked the question, is it ghosts that are coming now to install these things? So you see a nation so blessed mismanaging her resources. He mentioned something about prioritization. We have been reading about billions of naira stolen by some ministers and things like that. Where do we go from there? Where do we go from there? So prioritization, create commonwealth for common good. Nigerians make the least demand from their government. And that is the truth. Why is it easy in the UK
for
a prime minister to step aside? Because the infrastructures are there. They have their problems. For the basic
so I have few minutes left, maybe about 3 minutes. I want to come to you in a moment, but for your final thought. But I also wanted to ask you, because we see some governors announcing some kind of increase. What's the legal implication of that when negotiations are still on by the tripartite committee?
Yeah, the states can make their announcements, and another thing is that the House of Assembly, we have to legislate on it. And the federal government is the big brother when it comes to minimum wage. It's on the exclusive legislative list. Then the states, we have to latch in, and the states are dodging, not because they don't have the resources, but because prioritization is different.
So sorry to interrupt you, I will let you, with the commendation, but when states say we cannot pay this minimum wage, is it a question of capacity, of willingness?
I'm not holding brief for states, but I know they collect good money from the federation account. And maybe when we truly restructure the country and regions, we have to fund their activities, we may come to our senses. So and let me commend Edo State. For the governor of Edo State has increased, but the big question now is that how can that tame the inflation? We call it disposable income of citizens. Lagos State also is improving on this. I think Kwara State also made a move and things like that. So we need a coordinated policy like that of the US. You see, it's monitored from the federal level because the attention is on human development, it's on equity, it's on justice, it's on getting a fair deal out of the contract towards productivity. And that is why it may appear that the Nigerian system is not productive. So we need to look at it holistically. And if somebody has taken away the vision for a great Nigeria, can we go back to the drawing board and re-establish one and learn from great leaders who have moved their people
I want to
into greatness?
Sorry to interrupt you. I want to give a last a minute or two to Comrade Asuguni. What are your expectations in terms of in the ongoing negotiations? It's May 31st, that's the deadline. What are your expectations for that, and how low do you think that, if at all, they're going to go down beyond the 615? How low do you think they should go?
Because of my training, I will not place any figure ahead of a negotiation, but I will encourage the participants to be consigned that the minimum wage negotiation is not about the workers alone. It's about the traders even on the street, because that wage determines patronage to other businesses. And therefore, the outcome, we should be looking at a corresponding planning of government, because that is my major concern. Do you know that even the people you call street boys, they are street boys because nothing is on the street. When you have factories on the street, you engage people. English language is only a problem to communicate to those that want to buy your product. It's not a problem to internalize in Nigeria to actually get things produced for our people. So I believe, and I will continue to advocate, that government should change their mindset towards production. We should believe that that is the only way to earn value, the only way to earn strength and integrity for our own currency. Because when we travel out there, and each time we travel there, you average Nigeria traveling abroad to buy anything, they tell you the price in their currency, very tiny, and you convert it to your naira, you take the wallet back to your pocket. Because not that you don't like it, but you can't afford it. And you are taking every conscious step because of other need that await your family. So minimum wage has to be reasonable, it has to be living wage, and the outcome is being earnestly expected by Nigerians that we cannot take anything less than living wage. And they should be guided in order not to make national error. So for the notice for action, I know if federal government fail, Nigerians will react. Beyond labor, Nigerians will react.
All right. Interesting conversation, so much to talk about, but we do have to leave it there. Thank you both. Former Deputy President, Nigerian Labour Congress, and Labour and Industrial Relations Consultant, Comrade Amechi Asubuni, thank you so much for your time. And the one that I just found out, member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management and lawyer, Jide Olugo, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. God bless Nigeria.
All right, that's Standpoint today. Remember, you can watch a repeat broadcast at 11 p.m. tonight and at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. I am Precious Amayu. Thanks for watching.